Good morning, everybody. It's Frank Norris here, leading on the Frank and Stan chats. I think, is this number 6, Stan?
Yeah.
Who'd
have thought?
Who would have thought? And this week, we're joined by Paul Duckworth, who's obviously on the top left-hand corner. Hello, Paul.
Morning.
Morning. Could you just give us, I think most people know me and Stan reasonably well, but perhaps less so you. So do you want to just tell us how you know Stan and a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So I'm a primary teacher by background. I was a primary head, and then I joined the Lancashire School Improvement Service alongside Stan a few years ago, about 18 years ago actually. And I've just left Lancashire School Improvement Service and set up a school improvement service with 6 dioceses in the north of England, so called DBE Services, but it's a company that's owned by 6 northwest dioceses. So just developing school improvement offer and working with school leaders across the northwest.
You were telling us before that you've just finished that job with Lancashire and you're starting the new one, but actually you've been in lockdown ever since.
I did, yeah. So I left on the 31st of March, so I did 2 weeks of lockdown still in Lancashire as part of that response, and then was always scheduled then to leave at the end of March, which I did. So not actually been into the office of my new job yet, so visiting schools virtually on Zoom every day and connecting with colleagues remotely. So yeah, different way of working.
Brilliant. Well, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Just to go over the ground rules again, we try and be positive. We're not going to slag anybody off. We try and be as honest as we can. We also appreciate these are sort of difficult times for everybody. And I think we managed to avoid even talking about politicians last week, Stan. I thought you were going to head into it, but I think we managed to divert at the last minute. And actually, we use the Stan word quite a lot. I hope we do follow it. The Stan word is
nice. We're trying to be nice, Paul.
Yeah.
Knowing me, you know how difficult that is.
So, a couple of things we're going to pick up from the last session, because we were talking about leadership last time, and we invited Paul on to give us some insights in terms of his own thinking around that. Let's start with what's caught your eye. Stan, do you want to kick off? Anything caught your eye this week?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did have leadership in my mind after last week. I think what caught my eye was leaders who aren't capable of saying, actually, no, we've made a mistake, let's go back to where we were before. The simple humility of saying, that hasn't worked, let's try something fresh. And to see MPs queuing up to vote in Parliament was just fantastic. Just for goodness sake, somebody say, that's not working.
Yeah, I tweeted about that actually here we are on Zoom, all of us, Parliament's found a way around all this lockdown stuff, and, here they go, going back to the Victorian times, as if things haven't moved on at all. It's a poor example, isn't it? It really is a poor example.
For me, it's the first thing that the lockdown has thrown up that's actually world class, and they've stopped it.
Paul, anything caught your eye this week?
Well, yeah, I mean, nationally, I was thinking about that both nationally and locally, and there's a bit of a thread between the two, really. I mean, one of the most powerful things I've seen this week was that Newsnight episode. Not an episode, really, is it? But the Newsnight report about the MHA homes. And one of the things that really struck me about that was the stillness of the reporting, was letting the MHA staff have their voice for a considerable period of time. And I just thought those voices were so powerful. And what came through, as you saw national leaders and area managers and staff in the homes, which are all very local to us, obviously, here in the Northwest as well, was the power of those relationships that were evident. And as they struggled at times to actually express how they felt in such a, what I thought was a really professional way. So, and I often say about leadership that, through our career, and I'm sure through yours, Stan, doing what you, Frank, in what you've done as well, often we get involved in schools when they were in difficulty, and at the heart of when a school got into trouble a lot of the time was about it. A lot of it boiled down to the quality of relationships and the trust that was within that situation. And that just came across to me through Newsnight. I mean, it was hard. I struggled to almost cope with it after I'd watched it. But what came through for me was the care that was just so evident and so real. What it meant to them, how much it meant to them, the job that they were doing, you know, so much so that one of the staff would sort of ask her son to go and live with somebody else. And, you know, you just see it in the voice.
Yeah, I was impressed with the CEO. The way that he was very matter of fact, wasn't he? He showed a great deal of care and love for the residents. But he did, yeah. He was. I mean, I actually went to bed much later than my wife that night because I watched the Newsnight programme, and then I couldn't get to sleep because it was in my head. And then I woke up at 4 o'clock, and the first thing I thought was Newsnight. And I actually tweeted at 4 o'clock in the morning, really to sort of try and rid myself of this sort of frustration and aggression that I felt towards the people who, well, somebody's responsible for this. You know, we'll know eventually who is. But that deep feeling of people being let down.
I do think people will be found to be responsible, but I suspect it won't be the people who've made those decisions. And I also think for a long way down the line, it'll be decisions made not with those intended consequences. I think some of those decisions will be made for the best of reasons without recognising what the consequences could be.
Well, what's caught my eye, apart from the fact that I'm still trying to learn to play the guitar, and I've had a really bad week, really bad week, in terms of not being able to do the tasks that the guitar teachers asked me to do. But I picked up on a tweet from an organisation called Innovate Her, which is a Manchester or Liverpool-based organisation which tries to get young women into tech businesses. And so they're running a program at the moment for sort of 12 to 16-year-olds on how to structure or how to create games, computer games. And they're actually offering this as an online course. So yesterday, I've supported this charity or this organisation for about 3 or 4 years. And I went on their website yesterday and tried to do some of the work. And it made me think about how little there was that was being taught in school that actually had a really direct relevance to the skill set required for people working in that industry. You know, it made me really question some of the reasons why children go and sit in classrooms and what they study, because actually it felt as though it was completely somewhere else. You know, it needed much greater creativity. It needed much greater thinking differently and not accepting things the way that they are. You know, that there needed to be this sort of level of challenge. So I was really struck by that. It made me go back to, and I'd love to talk about curriculum in one of these in the future. It made me think again about, you know, what are the children being asked to learn? And
let's put curriculum the week after inspection, Frank.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, last week at the end I talked about world leaders and leaders locally who had been impressive in terms of your thinking. I mentioned Barack Obama, and I think this week didn't he come out again in terms of speaking for the nation in a sense, and he's still got the hearts of and minds of many Americans, and certainly me. I did think about who was probably the most impressive leader I'd actually worked with. I know I found it quite hard to, because I didn't want to offend anybody that I had worked with who I didn't name, you know, so it's difficult. But I have to say, Stan, that Miriam Rosen still stands out as a principled leader who was very, very difficult to work with because she was so challenging, you know, and brought the best out of me, and I think brought the best out of you. Didn't always do it in the in the kindest of ways.
Yeah.
But
Let's
actually,
get back to empathy.
I know, but actually, I do feel as though there was a real genuine, commitment and desire to enable us to reach a standard which was way beyond what we thought was capable of, and there's a strong influence on me. So I don't know. I mean, I think you were a bit cagey, weren't you, about your world leaders, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, I think the way I looked at it, and I've given it some thought over the week, is the world leaders aren't people that have made me think about my leadership and improve my leadership. People who I've improved after meeting and talking and seeing are people more like sort of Andy Hargreaves and people like that. And I was very inspired by the story of Shackleton and his leadership style, because that was, I suppose it's a bit what I'd want to see. Somebody who's doing things very differently. Somebody who thought that the lowest serving member of the crew should be able to work the scientific instruments just as much as the scientists. And the scientists should be able to swab the decks if they're there and it needs doing. And, to interview eminent scientists and say, right, get up on the table now and sing us a song, because in 2 years we know you're going to have a time of entertaining everybody. I think it's just inspirational. And he spent 2 years on a voyage with every kind of disaster you could have, and nobody died. Compare it with Scott. So that, and then more recently, I've worked with Mark Borden for about 20 years.
Who's Mark Boardman?
Mark Borden's company's called Mindflick now. They do the profiles. He's elite performance. Elite. What's his title, Paul? You'll know. Performance.
And he works with elite sport, doesn't he? Performance psychologist, lead performance psychologist with England Institute of Sport.
But we put together some leadership training, and in doing that, there was a lot of thought went into that, and that made a difference to me. And I'll leave it at that, except for he did inspire me most by challenging me on a phone call when I was taking over a particularly difficult situation in work. And we had a conversation about how we might do some things. And then just as I was about to put the phone down, he said, anyway, this will test if you're a really good leader or not. Yeah. And I was so angry with him that maybe 3 or 4 years later, I said, you really wound me up with that. And he said, you needed an edge, Stan. So I wanted to give you something that would give you an edge to make you do it. And it was just really deep thinking beyond my level. And then the other one was Jonathan Jansen, who I met for a very short period of time. He was the dean of Pretoria University, I think. And he told his story about growing up in South Africa in apartheid and the horrific things he'd done. And now as Dean of University and what he did, that was just inspirational. Yeah. It's worth looking him up. So those are mine.
Paul, what about you?
Well, having listened to the chats over the previous weeks as well, and I heard mention of Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, who everybody is very mindful of at the moment in terms of how she's leading her country through the current situation. And I've also just been reading Matthew Syed's new book. Matthew Syed wrote Black Box Thinking, which, again, I think is a really, really good leadership read. But it's just written a new book called Rebel Ideas, which is all about diverse thinking, the power of diverse thinking. Some lovely, lovely, lovely things in there about how useless meetings are. A meeting of people who have a very similar view simply reinforce each other's view that the decision that's about to be taken is the right one, and how employing people with a similar perspective, or the brightest minds in the world, but who've all been employed because they're clones like everybody else. At the very start of the book talks about the difficulties of ever having noticed, spotted what 9/11 might have become, because everybody had a particular view and a thought. The CIA recruit the very best out of the top universities who all think the same way. So there was nobody thinking differently about the threat. It isn't really a threat, that. But he quotes Jacinda Ardern as saying, yes, I'm empathetic, but it takes power and strength to be empathetic. And what I love is one of the little quotes he puts in there is respect is not demanded by these leaders, but it's volunteered by those they lead. And I think that comes back to what I said before about trust and relationships. It's about being respected. And I've worked with some people in the past who expect to be respected by virtue of their position. And I have a little saying, which is, respect is earned. But I prefer that one now, really. It's volunteered by those that you lead. You can't influence it. Whether you're respected or not, it's nothing to do with you.
It's funny, I was going to mention this before, but I think Stan also referred to it last time, and it's just now about somebody, a leader who actually can relate to, who understands the different roles that people play within the organisation, and genuinely goes out their way to engage with that. I mean, because I think we've all possibly worked for leaders who, by virtue of their position, feel as though it's a little bit below them, that actually, I haven't really got time to go and speak to them, will you do it for me? Whereas I always remember the 2005 England-Australia Test series where Andrew Flintoff, when everybody was celebrating at the Oval, went to speak to the groundsman, who actually created this amazing wicket, and everybody was running on it and, jumping over it. But he actually sort of went and had a drink with the groundsman. And in a way, it's that ability, isn't it, to connect with everybody who's played a part.
Something that you've just reminded me of, when I was working in Lancashire, at one point, I'd just taken over this difficult area, and I was going in, it was sunny, and the unit was based in a sort of hut, and you went up some stone steps, and outside that was one of the admin staff in the sun. So I just passed comments saying, are you trying to catch a bit of sun or something? And we had a less than 2-minute conversation. 3 or 4 years later, when we were talking about how we'd managed to turn this issue round, she said, "You spoke to me on your first or second day. My previous manager hadn't spoken to me in nearly 2 years."
Just the point you made, Paul, wasn't it, around communication?
Yeah.
And it's listening to people who know what's going on more than you do. In school, it's like, making sure you talk to the caretaker about issues, because they see issues that are different from you. And,
I think also there's some symbolic things, isn't it? I mean, we're all primary people, but it staggers me why secondary head teachers don't actually just get out on the gate a little bit more often. The sort of thing that we would have done primarily because we wanted to. I did it because I wanted to have a parent body and to wish the children could, have a good evening and that sort of thing, but also to stop any sort of vicious rumours about something going on. Stop it!
When I visited Stoke, the Co-op Academy in Stoke, the head Nick there, at the end of about 3 o'clock, said, "Look, you need to get off now because it'll be really crowded on the car park and stuff." So I did, got in my car, as usual, turned the wrong way and came back past the school to find Nick crossing pupils across the road outside.
Honestly,
woof.
I know. It is, isn't it? I mean, Paul, you mentioned before some of the difficulties that, that when you go and support schools, these are sorts of things that, regularly become the underlying theme.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's the thing we used to have about indicators. They indicate, but they're not the thing. We used to say, if you look at coming into an office and there's some really nice plants and some good displays, you get a view that this might be an okay establishment or hotel or something like that. But you can't make the hotel good by putting plants in the reception area.
Yeah.
It's not reversible, but they are indicators that something's going right in that organisation.
Yeah.
I think often when you talk to staff and you're trying to get to the nub of a problem, people will, in virtually every organisation, will say communication could be improved. They'll say it's communication, but actually, as you said, then people go off at a tangent and they put an internal phone system in, and they put a whiteboard on the staff room wall, and they do all these sort of things that pay lip service to communication systems or channels, but actually that's an indicator sometimes that people don't necessarily feel listened to. They don't necessarily feel they've got the information that they need to do the job effectively. So it's not about getting more emails, because that means I'm communicating with you, send you an email every night, tell you what you should do. You know, it's not that at all, is it? And I think there's something about listening as well. Another little quote that I often say is, you know, some people sometimes in a conversation are not listening, they're waiting to speak. So they're just waiting for a pause for them to make their point known. And active listening, again, I suppose I've worked a lot with Mike and Mark from Mindflick and other colleagues. I mean, listening, active listening as a coaching skill is just so important. Actually listen to what people are saying to you. And that, when I said I thought there were some significant things this week nationally, but also locally, is how inspired I am by the head teachers who are dealing with the current situation. And in some cases, they've already reopened for more children. They've always been open, but I've opened more widely. Whereas in Lancashire, you know, the advice from the Director of Public Health was to hold off for another week, and just there'll be an announcement on Monday about what the situation is. But in the meantime, heads that are really communicating well with their parents and getting some fantastic feedback and are really appreciated for what they're doing and making the right decisions for their school, which may not just fit what somebody else's model was. So, and I think again, just back down to relationships, you know, parents who might have thought, well, nationally, they've been told they can come back to school, so why are they not coming back to school? This is terrible. Are actually going, oh, thank you. Thanks for that. I understand why you've made the decision you've made.
Yeah. The ones you've got to watch like that, though, the heads you've got to watch who do all that is the one parent who still says, you don't know what you're doing, it doesn't agree with it. And that's the one that they carry home with them.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to a head last week who'd had one email out of hundreds that was really critical of what he'd done. And he said, that's the one that I'm wrestling with instead of celebrating with all the other things that we've done.
I think communication is, you do reap what you sow. So I'll mention him actually, but Phil Brook is the head at Annex Park in Stockport, and they've been open. He's led from the front. He's been in every day the school's been open. And he, for the first, I think it must have been 30 odd days, did a daily video cast to the school, to everybody, you know. And actually he's now been able to sort of morph into a more sort of traditional form of communication by email or whatever. But he's got all that stuff behind him, you know, where the parents know that he's directly, throughout all that time, communicated with them on a very personal level. You know, that actually he's now able to sort of, he's garnered their trust and respect. So he also, you know, they'll run with him. But it's those that have stayed away from that, you know, that actually have continued to go through letters and whatever, more formal approach. I think that we, you know, what he's managed to do is those parents have got to see him. They've seen him. Yeah. So I think what we'll do is we'll draw it a close there and look at some other project for next week. So thank you, Paul, for joining us.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And, before we run out of time, so I'll post this up in a few hours. So we'll see you all next week. Bye.